for the We Are Live, episode 104 of the Lyrical Ones. This marks another occasion 52 and 52, 52 weeks in a year. I looked back recently, realized that it was a Juneteenth celebration that started this whole thing off. And yeah, here we are. It is June once again, June 8th, 2022. And we've been able to accomplish, complete, and yeah, we're here, 104 episodes. With that being said, Al Fluent, how are you doing?
What up, Neo? I'm in a space. It's kind of like the Watchtower, Justice League Watchtower. Feel me? It's like it's hard to not see it all for what it is. Just when you have this, convenient bird's eye view of things, and I'm feeling great. Temperatures changing this this week, this first second week of June. I guess we're starting the second week on it's the June 8th, episode 104, 104, and you're right, double 52s, 2 years in, and things keep changing while things keep remain things keep staying the same. Things remain the same, things change, and all around the world the same song. But I'm operating out of a place of gratitude. It's a warm evening, and in the Bay Area, and I think I'm just happy to feel, process loss, and instead of compartmentalize, like release what isn't serving me in the moment. It's not saying I'm joyous or that I'm ecstatic or that I'm beaten down and depressed. More like I know other folks are going through it too, and folks steal and kill and dehumanize each other while searching for or coming to grips with their own humanity. And there's no, by the time there's no, coming back from taking a life. There's no, re-up. There's no resurrection. And, sometimes the easiest way in America we feel to avoid things is, stay off the majority control, the capitalistic control media that has, invaded with their algorithms everyone's, free time to scroll and visit these social media platforms. And the other way is to stay away as best you can from the capitalistic, patriarchal, white supremacy society that's often outside one's door. And then when we look at young young students and children, the safest place for them may not be home. It may just be at schools where white America has abandoned those communities. At least you could avoid, a mass shooting, but then you got to deal with, scarcity of food, lack of resources, lack of funding, lack of staffing, And again, right, it's not about me just being, beaten down and sad. It's more like, oh, there's more stuff to unearth about the way policy is made, the way that legislation works, the way that folks, choose to show up in the primary and not show up in November or vice versa. And how the government, the House, the, the Senate will choose to ignore solutions while they make money and make grandstands on the problems. So as we get to 104, still matters to me what the artist's role in this world is. It can't all be just memes. Creativity can't, necessarily drive us forward. Well, I guess it actually can, because there's a lot of art, that started as memes, that's influencing us a lot. And, at some point, we get crossovers. And as a gamer, as a wrestling fan, as a basketball fan, we do like the crossover. As a comic book fan, we do like the crossover. And so it's a it's a wild 104. It's a West Coast 104. So how you feeling on this episode?
Um, Synchronicity, because I was I've been doing my best to refrain from using the word frustration or anger or pissed off, whatever you want to call it. I've been doing my best, and so I've been calling it a food. I've been referring to it as a food. That's what I've been doing. I just say a food,
Did you
and
watch
that
Jujutsu Kaisen?
no, not yet.
Oh, this is exactly what happens.
So I say a food, right? And these past couple of days, I had a goal in mind from Tuesday going into today, right? I was working on getting these tools together, and this one particular tool was kept malfunctioning, and it frustrated me because I was so bent on needing this tool to accomplish the objective. There's an objective I'm pursuing, and I'm trying to complete it. I'm trying to get it done, but I need this tool, and this tool was giving me a headache. So I'm going back and forth driving to get to where I bought it from, to talk to the people there to see, do I need to return it? Is there something I'm missing? And I'm like, I'm thinking I've done everything in my power, not realizing I haven't, until I'm proven, yeah, you didn't do everything you did, right? And then today happens, same thing, right? Another taking it up a notch in terms of the the adversity in trying to just accomplish this task, right? And so again, I'm met with a reminder that I have to have patience even when I feel like I don't, because if I still have life, then I have room for patience. I had to eat the words that I have given to my friends, right? I had this friend who was so bent on talking about God's will. And I'm like, God gave you free will to do what you can with your life. If you have the means to do something, you can. If you choose to repeat where there's failure, learn from it. But there's nothing wrong with repeating through failure. That's the challenge. You grow from it. But if you feel like that failure is more of a roadblock, or it's a barrier that you can't get past, then yeah, you gonna feel like, oh, this is out of my hands, it's out of my control. This is beyond my abilities as a person. This is beyond me. This is powers that is more magnificent than anything I can comprehend. But that's not the case. It's just how bad do you want it? And in this moment, I'm sitting here frustrated. I'm upset. I'm now tying together all of these different things about well, maybe because I ate this has impacted me socially, emotionally, because I feel this way about these. It's this time of year. It's all these different things. It's these triggers, these moments. It's everything I've been through. It's all this stuff building up. It's all this pressure. And instead of being angry, I become sad. I become sad and I'm able to sit in my sadness and reflect on things in a different capacity than I am accustomed to more recently. And I find a level of appreciation in the sadness. I find a level of appreciation in reminiscing about my old job where one of my former supervisors was like, yeah, we still looking for somebody to replace you. Big shoes to fill. And I'm like, y'all got this. Y'all got this. But in my sadness, I'm taking it as a moment of like, that's right. But it's like, no, that's not right. I want y'all to find somebody because it isn't about me. I just so happen to be there to do the job until I could no longer do the job. I
Yeah.
did the best I could. I gave the most I could. And I hope y'all find somebody who can come in and do that job because the job that I have to do now is
Mm.
causing me to reflect about something that I did not like and finding some joy in all of our shared misery and all of our shared adversity or challenges or pain. And it's like, nah, that's not it. I got to back up. I got to stop myself. I got to remember what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to be
Mm.
married, have a wife that's going to be able to hear me out, talk to me, and help me process what I'm going through. I'm thankful to have a community around me of people who can trigger ideas and inspire in a way that's going to change my day. Like shout out to Figo. We had a conversation and it literally turned the tide for the both of us. And it was like this is beautiful, right? You going back to what you said about creation, right? We're creating an idea, we're curating an experience in our minds, and that thing fed us so much in the moment. And I keep coming back to it where the imposter syndrome, the insecurities are feeding into the, well, what if it don't happen? Because I love what I created so much. What if it don't come? And it's like, nah, gotta keep that back. Gotta have more patience with myself. Have to find the grace and the ability to just let things happen as they need to happen when I'm working with others. And if I can control something else or get my hands on something else, then go and do that. Which resulted in me just ever so quickly, I'm getting ready for the podcast. I see somebody on Twitter saying write a 16. I hear the beat immediately. I the words start coming. So I snatch that video, right, turn it into audio, hop on Pro Tools, write a quick 16, post it back up. And I felt this sense of achievement and accomplishment. And to have that person acknowledge what I did, I was like, I'm back. But I had to go through that to get here. I had to
Yeah.
go through the pain. I had to go through the reflection. I had to go through the lessons I've learned to reinforce in the moment when I'm being challenged to overcome. Because it is a thing where what you said is in that, right?
Yeah.
Where kids who seek refuge at school or seek sanctuary, like I had this moment of reflection when we came back, right, from being remote. I was like, this is probably the biggest open space in a building that most of us ever get the chance to explore. To be in a room where the walls are so huge, so tall, so wide, so massive, and to be in that with others. You don't, I mean, unless you got a mansion, and I don't know too many people who do. And when you look at the metrics and the data and you see the numbers, not a lot of people do. And actually, I've looked at some of those, like in Hillsborough, and they all ain't got big rooms. So to have the moment to come into a classroom and realize I'm in an open space that's enclosed is a very different dynamic, right? Go to church, there's pews, it's this magnificent, huge structure for all us to congregate together. School, in some ways, does that for people. They might be in a house so packed where they don't
Mm.
have space, and they get to sit at a table and there's space, there's room. You can see more than maybe clutter or a mess. You can see more than what you've been accustomed to as the classes change from semester, as the projects and the work changes through the days. And so now children are in a space where the worry is there, for the parents is there, for others, for community is there. It's this constant retread on, is it going to happen to my kids? To
Mm.
then zoom out even further and be like, for the average ordinary person, depending on the shade of color of their skin,
Mm.
their normal day may just be the last day, right? I'm gonna just go shopping, I'm gonna go cook, right? I you made a mistake. Maybe that mistake now has triggered a response where it's like, but you're right. It's not about getting lost in that. And I do for myself go to the creation. I do go into the fact that I have the ability to create something that I can learn and manifest and do and find the blessings in it all to make more when everything may be working against me, or when the one thing that's working against me becomes everything, because I'm not able to see beyond the one thing, right? I'm not able to acknowledge all else or what else is out there. So right now, I'm relieved. Right now, I'm appreciative of this moment to be able to come, have this conversation, to plan, to think, to work out what does the future look like for us, but also to be able to have the lyrical ones conversation and dialogue. So that's how I'm doing.
That's right. It's good. I mean, it's good to focus on things that are important, and I think acknowledgement that every artist is traveling a tough road to get anywhere near what their experiences were like before the pandemic. And now the skill sets and behavioral quirks and everything that was kind of learned in the pandemic is kind of like available to be tossed aside for the rat race. While some people, right, are trying to find that balance because they basically said, oh, well, I've been working from home this whole time. I really haven't had to do much, in terms of meeting with people and back to back meetings and things like that. I've had to do that virtually. But as far as being next to people and communicating them and say, right, I would like to join an elevator, I would like to join in line, in a small space, the ability to communicate like that was lost on some people. And like when folks say they want like change, or some type of newness, I think often people want to delegate or wait for someone else to pass through and try their idea out. And I'll wait on them. I'll wait on the people in front of me. And in music, you can't really do that. Like it's possible that you can reach the same benefits or same audience if you take your time to grow it organically. But sometimes you have to do what's happening in the mainstream right now. One creative shares their expression, and someone else right turns it into an MP3 and flips it in, and then infuses their own expression. And it's not easy to like figure out that flow, but when that flow happens, even when you don't mean to, it's awesome that you listen to it and say, I'm a bless us both ways. Me being allowed to give, and then also me being allowed to receive. Same as a person who made a beat say, well, like allow them to be, more than a giver, but a receiver as well.
I mean, in that, it brings up the giving and receiving. What's given, how it's received.
True.
Right in this moment, we just had decisions take place that were held by the community, held by people, voting, right? Um, being the onomatopoeia of choice, UMM. What I seen as I looked at the map of one of the things that were voted on, right?
Mm.
Chesa Boudin, the DA, district attorney in San Francisco, has been recalled due to the votes. Now, me, I'm like, let's look at the numbers. And
Right.
looking at the turnout of the people who voted, the numbers were low. They were extremely low. But where they were high was not surprising. Now, as inappropriate and gross as it is for me to say this, the ones who would benefit most from what the former DA was trying to do, in my eyes, in many ways, they weren't there to participate. And
Mm.
in the most ignorant ways, right? This is where I ask on the audience and people listening, for those that are hearing this at any time period in the future or the past, let me know if I'm wrong. Let me
Mm.
know if I'm off, affluent, please. Let
Mm.
me know. Because to me, it was a thing where it's like on one end, I could see people disengaged, disenchanted. Like the process itself, as I sat there going through the candidates and the votes and like, what do I vote on? What do I do? And I'm researching and I'm reading and I'm like, y'all really don't give us much of a choice. Y'all like,
Yeah.
we go to Baskin Robbins, right? And it's like 31 flavors. In this circumstance, it's like you get 6 of the 31. You may have an idea what these other flavors are, but you're only getting 6 to pick from today. You're only getting 2. You're only getting 1. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how is this a real where's this how does this where does this begin and end? Because this is just a piece of paper that's been delivered to me for me to review that I didn't have any say in. And I'm like, okay, how do I get more teeth in the game? But it's like, oh, time, energy, the commitment, the sacrifice. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, yo, this some of y'all benefit from your connections. Some of y'all benefit from the legacies you've been able to institute by playing in the game. So it's like the ones who even have a remote chance,
Right.
you still are holding to the same outdated system that I'm trying to break away from. So I can't blame people when I look at the numbers for being like, I'm cool, I'm over it. I'm not gonna deal with the system no more. Because
Mm.
when we cycle into what is the factors, right? It's like, oh, we want a San Francisco that feels safe. We want this, we want that. We want justice reform, which is what was currently going on. It's not an easy process. It takes time.
Right.
It's something that is gradual, right? It's not rapid, it's not fast because it's an archaic system that loves the slow moving snail pace of bureaucracy. That's what it is. So when you want reform, you want change, right? It's going to take time. And me being me, there's many things I don't agree with in how things are carried out. And unfortunately, I don't have clout, money, or merit status for my words to matter into the degree of having leverage. Now, working on it, I'm working on it. But right now, it's I'm in the minority of a minority. And I totally accept that. That's not a complaint. It's just the observation and me showing the facts and data of what the truth is for me right now for y'all to understand. Well, why don't you? So that's where things change. I look at the map and I see who voted and where they voted. I look at the
Yeah.
numbers, I look at the breakdown of race, and I notice there is a stark comparison that I can recall of the redlining maps in San Francisco in the 1920s, 1930s, of how redlining was identifying neighborhoods where the banks would prevent people of color from being able to get loans in and be able to move to, right? They would designate areas in blue and green as being high valued property areas, and then the ones in red, redlining, the ones in red were given to the people, and you know, they were said, "Oh, this isn't valuable," right? Which is why when you look at the civic structure, right, it's like, oh, why do we got all these power plants and water waste treatment facilities in these locations? Because they did not value the people living there. They was black people, brown people, Asian people. They didn't value them living there. More importantly, they didn't value black people living there. Now, the reason why I come back on black people again is because those are Americans. Those are Americans. Most of them descendant of slaves. The way that they're treated when it comes to how obvious it is, right? It's very hard to be white passing, right? Shout out to Rich Wigga, Poe Wigga inside Atlanta. But in the common everyday practice of life, looking at the breakdown of voting and then looking at the redlining map, I'm like, yo, redlining really worked. It really worked because the ones who engaged are the ones who have been told for generations, for over a century now, that they're valued, right? Say what you want about, well, what does that mean for black people? I don't know, because I look at how the breakdown of like the percentage, like I seen some crazy stat that in 3 years, the number of black people arrested is the equivalent to the population of black people in San Francisco. That isn't mirrored anywhere else. There's no correlative data anywhere else, right? You talk about solving crimes and people being upset, and you can see in other counties and other places of California where they're more strict, more conservative, that there's actually a difference in how things are being done. But we're not going to talk about that because when I look at the news and I look at the fear mongering that's done and how they
That
continue
part.
to put people in this state of panic by saying, well, this is what's going on in your city. I could, for the life of me, remember being at my grandmother's house and watching the news, being bored out of my mind, and never have this much placed on people in struggle and not having opportunities. And that's what it really comes down to. People can say, oh, you need to, grab yourself by the bootstraps. No, you got to have bootstraps to grab your bootstraps. Most people ain't even got feet.
Hmm.
Most people are put in a
True.
position where they're they're trained, they're put in position where their mind has been inflicted with so much damage and so much harm, where looking at something and seeing an opportunity, I mean, I'm gonna be very frank and very honest. I've been the tokenized, I've been the outlier, I've been the one that's the anomaly, and even still the outcome has been I want nothing to do with the system. I want nothing to do with what the guarantees look like. Oh, we guarantee healthcare, we guarantee dental, we guarantee vision, we guarantee retirement, we guarantee that you're gonna get days off, we guarantee that this, and I still want nothing to do with y'all. I still want nothing to do with it because of the way I'm treated, the way that I'm seen, the way that I feel, the way that I can look at my fellow skin folk, my kinfolk, and know the concessions that they make on the daily when it comes to their ego, their pride, their self esteem, their culture, right? All of those things. I'm like, I can't endure this. Not no more.
Hmm.
I'd rather go with what little access, privilege, or support that I have and make the most of the opportunities before me because I can't deal with the guarantees that are given. That's not for everybody, and that's not a criticism for the people who continue to try and make those guarantees work, because to some degree they do work, but I do see pain, I do see frustration, I do see stress, I do see this form of toxic and harmful behaviors that have been
Right.
justified just because people choose to stay in the guarantees, right? It's like, oh, what you complaining for? No, I ain't complaining, I'm just saying what's the obvious, I'm saying what's the observation, right? It's there. People are being harmed. That's the status quo. Now we have a recall. That shout out to redlining, and things are being reformed or regressing back to what it was. Right? People want what once was, even though you never get that. Right? We are seeing how when a city that once had a lot of public resources has become extremely privatized, and when I think about right what you were saying about the people who are giving and the people who are receiving and that dynamic and that relationship. And I think about this city that has given people this image of liberalism, of free thinking, of wanting to be on the cusp of change and innovation. Yet, when you look at the numbers of people who are arrested, when you look at the number of people who are civically engaged, politically engaged, who actually have teeth in the game, they're either nowhere to be found or they're
Hmm.
always treated as second, third class citizens consistently, right? And it's so unfortunate because I'm not gonna wax words and poetics in the moment for it. It's a huge disservice. It's irresponsible, and this is the outcome of years of the media structure being able to play the game, And those who have enough money to fit within the media structure benefit from it, right? It's only what you see, it's only what you know. If you don't seek it and you don't find it, then it's not your fault. Because what's available to you is always available to you. If they gonna broadcast something, you gotta pay to play, right? If I go and get a TV channel, the advertisement dollars, right? The programming before and after, right? The access is not there. But if I got close to $1 million to advertise during the NFL, to pay a couple $1 million to advertise during the NBA finals, what would it look like?
Mm.
What does it look like for you to see me? What does it look like for you to find the truth? If you are able to listen or even participate in this, it's a blessing in its own, but it's also like so much luck and happenstance in this moment, right? The level of work, time, energy to just draw interest is profound. All that being said, Affluent, what are some of your thoughts and observations on the past 48 hours?
I'm just observing that we don't need to come to conclusions. And just like in sports, we can size up the situation, taking our time. They call it slow playing. And I mean, things that can be issues or hindrances, sometimes have to do with pride and ego and not willing to accept a helping hand. Sometimes it's passion and figuring out I think just figuring out what works best in a situation um, may take I think more time than sometimes people are ready to give. I think there's a lot of talk of like just like what's the word I'm thinking of? I lost the word. I was thinking of just like that instant gratification and people that's like being impatient and wanting, the results quickly and not having the skill sets to pursue something that may take longer than they want to.
Memes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes people work hard on memes.
That's true, they do. But sometimes the ones that catch fire is the ones that was just like, it was a toss up in the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, I think TikTok has a little bit of that, and the video meme creation, or just like the repetitive nature of the looping video. Uh, like that, the put together memes, can sometimes take folks far, but it's the algorithmic engagement, basically that's algorithmic engagement that's being, farming on TikTok. Basically, you're right. You're just trying to get as many people to watch whatever you're trying to watch as possible, and sometimes the art, goes by the wayside.
I mean, I think that the crazy thing is when you said memes earlier, right? And thinking about TikTok and the act of creation and the way things are formed. I've been recently watching Rick and Morty. Um, I've found my way back to seasons 4 and 5 and like just watching it. And how much truth is delivered in the form of this artistic vehicle. As
Mm,
often is the case with Marvin Gaye, with Smokey Robinson, right, with Isley Brothers, with all of these artists over time, right? You could go to Tupac, you could go to Kanye, you could go to Jay-Z, you could go to Beyonce, you could go to so many artists who are able to curate an experience, right? Like thinking of Donald Glover as Childish Gambino, Atlanta, thinking of all these different people, right, who deliver art, create something that gives the catharsis of relief from the day to day, right? If you can't do it, if you can't say it, do it in song, right? If you don't see it, make a movie. And memes being this snapshot, this ability to synthesize or concisely get a point across in such a minute way, right? And then I go back to Metal Gear Solid 2 and how before I knew what a meme was, I was being told what a meme is. And understanding media and understanding a network and understanding AI, understanding control, manipulation, governance, freedom, liberty, Sons of Liberty. And
Mm.
Metal Gear Solid 2 coming out of 9/11, coming out of being in school, witnessing terror and seeing it on everyone's face and having a heads up because I read a book about it previously, right? And so these things have trained me that when you look, when you're looking for it, you'll find it. It may not be delivered in a much black and white binary way, but it may come through a delivery that is extremely beautiful, extremely gripping, extremely fake, but also authentic, also honest, also truthful. And so memes, like, yeah, like thinking about how now these platforms and these people, these systems, these machines, referencing to Lawrence Fishburne as Morpheus in the Matrix Reloaded, these machines, right? They are becoming the platforms for people to engage, to be connected. Because funny enough, when I was looking like at some of these candidates, I was like, oh, let's see who got a Twitter. I
Mm.
think Obama has like the most Twitter followers of anybody on Twitter. That does not reflect in Instagram. I had to say that because a friend of mine was like, Twitter, that's where it's at. I'm like, oh, really? So, let's look at the dynamics. The former president of the United States is the one who's the most popping on this platform. That says a lot. It's about people who can read. But I digress about literature and literacy. Going back to what I was saying, I'm looking at, oh, do you have a platform that's accessible beyond your website where you're interacting with the discourse of social media? Twitter being the one that seems like as much as people have their own perspectives, there's a lot to be seen when you can say things in 240 characters or less. And so most of them didn't have it or they just started it since they were on the campaign trail. And I'm like, yo, you not really trying to compete or you just thought you could compete. And there's nothing wrong with that, but yo, you're gonna have to do a lot more work now. And then if you lose, are you just gonna go and walk away? Or are you gonna come back and be like, all right, it's cool, it's good, we here, we still around. Ain't like my life over. It just means I got more to regroup and focus on to learn from this moment. And people's egos get crushed, they get hurt, right? They don't come back from it. And it's okay. But who's the ones that got the numbers? The ones who've been doing it, the ones who've been around. Those are the ones who have an audience. Those are the ones who can leverage the numbers they got, the access, the reach to continue to keep their positions of power. And I'm like, oh, this is tough. This is memes.
Mm.
Memes that rise to the top always find their way, right? They come back. There's a nostalgia for them. Remember back when? Remember this gift? Remember this face? Remember this person? And I'm like, man, Metal Gear Solid. Shout out to Hideo Kojima.
That's right. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid changed a lot of stuff for people, and just like you said, it was introducing, the idea and concept of memes, you know, early, and through cinematography and storytelling and music, took folks basically to a world, within a similar culture, social, economic, like battleground um, of the real world America, and in the game you're seeing similar division and peace, trying to bud into something that's viable, that's shareable, and this 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 offering from Kojima just gave folks a lot to process just in dialogue alone. The writing of the dialogue itself, stood out to people and you know shook people's, I think, their what they thought their standards were, and then come to find out, oh, I agree with some of the stuff in this game. This is now, you know, something that I want to, like, that I feel invested in. And as much as I wanted to, you know, I think vote without affiliation, I try to look for like blurbs and how much people, candidates, share with the world, and then how they define themselves, right? Because anybody who's made a social media account, has deflected from a bio or projected in a bio or just straight up lied. When it comes to lighting, folks are just like, I know I got this idea from so and so, or this was the original idea when it wasn't necessarily. But I think there needs to be more disruptors and less lifetime politicians. And at the same time, the the public needs a little bit of a background check, and just like to really kind of understand and look at what these candidates are doing, what the history of their activity is like. Some folks is new, some people are incumbents, and some people are just longtime politicians. Switching to a less, sometimes listen to a less competitive office seat, or position, but they still believe in whoever they were supporting. Just look at the vote of the Protect Our Kids Act and how close the vote was in the House. And I'm like, y'all really feel y'all need to stay along your party lines instead of doing what's helpful. But again, a lot of times with like just like the medical industry, right? You're looking at you know like after the fact health, not preventative care. Sometimes it's what our politics looks like. It's just like reactive and not as put together as it could be. I took some liberties, and you know took some changes with the well, took to at least hope to make changes and exposure to some of the candidates as I looked them up and looked through what they were doing. So just got to be vigilant. I think that's what Big Boss was telling us, in a lot of ways to be diligent, and you can't vilify the people. Sometimes you got to vilify the system, and then find where you can make an impact on the system.
which is crazy because he was vilified by the system, and
Right.
that's how the game go. But even more importantly, it's like it's so real. Like you you start off in this game right as someone who's unaware of what's to come, has an expectation, has an idea, but the character and you share this sense of constant curiosity and discovery of what is to unfold. And as things unfold, you see humanity for what it is in its humor, in its despair, in its love, in its passion, in its anger, its rage, its sadness, its grief. And yeah, Big Boss is seeing the world through this lens where he's just a pawn, a weapon of war. And now realizing because war is such a huge part of the day to day operations of the globe, has decided, okay, I'm going to go against the system. I'm going to go against the grain and I'm going to be an army without borders, right? Like doctors without borders, but an army without borders, right? We're going to go to the highest bidder, or we're going to only work for who we believe to be justified in their cause or their struggle, to then have the world vilify him as being a holder of weapons of mass destruction, to being someone who is worth pursuing in the destruction and the deterioration of what they've built, to only come back again and again and realizing that that's kind of how this goes. That's
Mm,
it's not to discourage. It's to know that the achievements aren't always grand. They can be, some will be, but not always. That the achievements is more in the legacy you leave behind and how you're able to support that into the future. Because as much as things remain the same, right? Like the parallels of slavery and Amendment 13 and prisons, the prison industrial complex, right? Like low labor work, low to no labor, no to low labor work, right? Like labor not being paid for free or being paid like next to nothing. But it still exists, it's still there, right?
that's right.
Even going as far as that, we've exported it to other countries where they've now. I mean, we didn't even have to export it. It's been there. It's all over the world, right? It's just what
Right.
flavor and whose shoe is wearing what. What are they stepping in, and what are they stepping on? And so, as we have these things that reinforce that status of like, it's like what was, what was as harmful as it could be, and we keep going back into it. There's people who have been able to break away or find a way or help motivate or push in ways that do set the standard or do push things along, right, for periods of time or for, centuries.
Yeah.
So it is just something that I am always encouraged by, where more importantly I can cultivate the ones around me. I can feed into and they can feed me because it's sustainable. When it becomes too large, it's not sustainable. When the influx of people infected by something then challenge the structures where you can't go and be seen by a doctor or a physician, that lets you know that the fabric of society was not built on the capacity of what we have. It was built on this very delicate balance that is non-existent. And that's just the constant, right? If you are in a situation where things don't go your way, right? It's something recently I seen where a woman lives in a different part of the state, moving out of California, talking about, man, I go to Trader Joe's on a Friday in California and it's packed. Now in my new home, it's like such a ease. There's no stress. There's no density of people. People are more polite. And I'm like, this person's reflecting on, oh, people are stressed out because there's so much to do, so much to be of service to. And I'm like, yeah, we weren't really made to be stacked up on top of each other. kids thrive most in a classroom where the numbers are low, right? Where there's that student to teacher ratio that isn't 30, right? People really do enjoy open outdoor spaces, but when they've been conditioned to be in confinement, well, confinement is what you're going to find. And I just keep thinking about that as I challenge myself to break away from the comfort of what I've been indoctrinated to, because it is a certain level of indoctrination where I start to romanticize things that aren't romantic. I start to highlight and beautify things that aren't beautiful, right? Because when you in the struggle, it's easy to do. I mean, that's what hip hop is. It's literally taking bits and pieces of what you got and making the most of it, which is incredible. But you got to be careful because at a certain point, at a certain threshold, you got to grow beyond that. You got to take it past that. Some do, some never do. Some are able to grow beyond. Some, well, that's all they know. That's the last thing they'll ever do. And so it is something that I really push and promote to the people around me. Like really hold tight to the tight group you got, to the small circle, to the ones that are around you, because that's where real change takes place. When you all can see each other and hear each other and really appreciate and feel each other, you're not gonna get lost in the sauce. You're not gonna get lost in the mix. Right? There's enough of us for us to find us. Right? But when it gets too large or it gets too big, it's not sustainable. It's not. You're seeing it, you're witnessing it from the unhoused to the way that the current political system is, to the way that the legal system is, to the way that medical care is dealt out and given. We have a system that is not sustainable. We have a way of life that people keep forcing and fighting to just stack people as though they're cans. When you have too many cans, a lot of those cans never get used. They go expired. I mean, it's just the reality. And I think there's something to be said in that metaphor for people to really think about because, as I mean, I'm the guy with the mask. It's not about me. It's more about what I can do, how I can be of service to you. Because if it was about me, it'd be different, right? Me as a rapper, me as this performing artist, right? The pursuit looks way different, and it's not a knock to everyone else who decides to pursue the arts and media in a way that shows who they are. But be mindful, it will change you as much as you allow it to. And so, yeah, I mean, that's my thought process is really focus on how intimate and how close and how you got something, right? Scaling up doesn't always mean scaling up with people, right? You can scale up in how you serve, but be mindful as you scale up in how you serve, the dynamics and quality do change. That's just how it is. That's the truth. There is abundance, but if you act and live in a limited mindset, right? There's abundance in having the intimate small group, right? And having that care of detail and attention, that quality. But if you start then to say, I need to exceed that abundance to have even more beyond more, right? Be mindful of how you do it. Be mindful of what responsibility looks like. Be mindful of quality looks like. It's just
Right.
something to really pay attention to because, again, you will find yourself around people who say they feel the way you feel, but will do something very different. So, Affluent, with that being said, do you have any thoughts, final words for people of Lyrical One's episode 104?
Uh, 2 years in the can, and I still think that artists, spoken word artists, poets, keynote speakers, Instagram influencers, YouTube uh, influencers. Everyone has a story to tell, but also just like a way to move the culture and society forward through their story, through the real life. I've been through this thing, and the way things are, I was impacted in this way, and what I would like to change can be impacted this way. But for like everyone listening who's not listening, everyone can. make an impact. And I hope the lyrical ones listening look for the opportunity for not just exposure as you put together a bag, but more just keep making changes.
Keep making changes. Now, before we come to a close, just a couple things. We recently had uh event take place in Brisbane where we had some spoken word artists. We also had legacy founding members of Lyrical Opposition do a surprise performance. Affluent being one of the prime operative members
That was a
to
good time.
grace and bless us twice on
That
the
was a
mic.
good time. Oh yeah, that
It was
happened.
amazing. It was beautiful. And so, our hope is to do more events as, we, ponder places that make sense. Again, the movie that we've talked about, Regentrification, is now going through a second iteration, a second phase, with screenings that we're scheduling and planning for this summer. So there will be more to discuss, more events to have, more ways to get in contact, to see us, to be with us. It's just a chance for us to build community, have community, and share energy. So, I just want people to think about that, understand
Yeah.
and know.
Follow us on Lyrical Ones at Lyrical Ones on Instagram, at Lyrical Opposition on Instagram. Turn the notifications on because we got some smooth stuff coming. Got some smooth stuff in a transition lane coming,
Definitely.
and look forward to more open mic nights. Uh, so we support local businesses. Look forward to more distribution of this documentary. Look forward to us having an open heart, an open mind, an open ear to things that you may want support or guidance or tips about. Tap in with lyrical ops that we might be able to help you out or at least point you in a direction that will seem hopeful for the goals ahead.
With that being said,
104.
shout out to the Super Coppers.
Once, 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 once. A once, once, once. Opposition, 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 opposition. Once, 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 opposition.